The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we head to Lombardy, to the beautiful moraine wine hills that lie below Lake Iseo, one of Italy's hidden treasures, to meet my guests, Silvano Brescianini, president of the Franciacorta Consortium, and also chef Mauro Zacchetti of Ristorante al Maló. Welcome, Silvano. Welcome, Mauro. How are you both today? And is it a beautiful day in Franciacorta?
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful day, sunny, spring is coming, and I'm very well, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both for being here. I think it's an important conversation because I really want our listeners who are located all around the world to come away from our conversation with a clear idea of where Franciacorta is, what the wonderful wines are like, but also an impression of the rich enogastronomia, the foods that pair so well with this wonderful sparkling wine. Now, Silvano, Franciacorta is probably Italy's most prestigious Metodo Classico sparkling wine. It's a wine of great style, prestige, and quality. But perhaps because it's produced in relatively limited quantity, it's less well known outside of Italy. Would you agree?
Yeah, we are a small region, only 3,300 hectares of vineyards, and production is around 20 million bottles. But Italian loves Franciacorta, and the main market today is Italy, but we are working in order to open new markets.
Okay, what percentage would be the Italian market compared to all'estero?
Italian market for us is more than 85, around 87%, and the rest is export, and the main market are Switzerland, Japan, US, and Germany.
Okay, that's really interesting. That's even higher than I thought. Italians really love Franciacorta, and it is a wine of prestige to celebrate, great moments, and also just a wonderful wine to enjoy at any time. Now, because the wine is less well known, perhaps, to our listeners who are located around the world, Silvano, can you help our listeners to locate you? Can you explain where the Franciacorta wine zone is and what are the features that are so beneficial for the cultivation of grapes?
Of course, Franciacorta is in north of Italy. We are just in the middle between Milano and Verona, below the Lago di Iseo, Lake Iseo. We are Morenic Hills and also a small mountain just where the Prealp starts. The location is important because the lake is extremely important, often happens in vineyards, because help to keep warm temperature in spring to avoid frost. And especially in summer, in the night, bring fresh wind from the Valle Camonica. So we are a small region, but with a beautiful landscape, many old house, villa, monastery, castles, and nice to visit. As a Franciacorta Consortium, today we represent 122 producers, from the bigger to the smaller, of course.
That's a good overview of where the wine zone is. Lago di Seo that you mentioned, this beautiful lake that is around the vineyards around the Lago di Seo. It's a big lake. It's bigger than I expected when I visited, but it's not so well known as perhaps Lago di Como or Lago di Garda. But it's an area that I think that's one of the reasons why our listeners should visit. It's still undiscovered as an area for tourism for foreign tourists, perhaps. I know Italians love to go there, but also just as the wine is undiscovered. And we'll be discussing the cuisine with Chef Mauro as well, because there's some wonderful foods to discover. Now, Silvano, you mentioned moraine terrain. This is very important in Franciacorta, a moraine terrain that's been scoured by the glacial movements in the ancient past. Is it that moraine terroir very important for the cultivation of grapes? And what are the varieties of Franciacorta?
Yes, of course, the moraine is important, but at the same time, you have some older soil based mainly in white stone formed by the sea, where here we had the ocean. The variety in Franciacorta are mainly Chardonnay, around 80%, Pinot Noir around 15, and Pinot Bianco a little bit less than 5. 10 years ago, we start to work in order to rescue old variety called Herbamat, and we introduce into the rules the Disciplinare Franciacorta 2017, but today still under study and less than 1%.
Okay, so the classic grapes, Chardonnay primarily, Pinot Noir, Pinot Bianco, and the small proportion of Herba Mat, the ancient variety. Now, these grape varieties are either blended in a cuvee or, in some cases, Blanc de Blanc or Blanc de Noir. They could be single varieties, but this is the cuvee to produce classic method sparkling wine. So Franciacorta is this land of sparkling wines. Tell us about the methods of production.
You know, the rules of Franciacorta in order for the quantity of bottle you can produce for hectare and the minimum aging are described in Europe. So we can produce less than other region and we have to age longer than other region. But the variety you can blend all. The limit is only for the Pinot Bianco. You cannot go up to 50% in a blend. And as well for the Herbamat, you can go up to the 10%. But also one of the characteristics of Franciacorta unique is the Satin. Satin is a Franciacorta always Blanc de Blanc. No Pinot Noir and no Herbamat can be used. But Satin, it's a name in order to show the elegance and the velvet of our satin. Always Blanc de Blanc, always with lower pressure in order to be more creamy, more silky, more elegant.
Okay, and I'm sure that we'll be discussing with Chef Mauro. Satin is also a wonderfully versatile wine at the table. Now, you mentioned as well the aging discipline. I think this is very important for our listeners to understand. For me, Franciacorta is a wine of great complexity. A wine, first of all, that happens to have bubbles as well, but the base wines are high quality and complex. And complexity also comes through time spent on the lees during the secondary fermentation in the bottle. So tell us the aging discipline for Franciacorta.
Of course, I also agree talking about wine, not talking about sparkling. Our Franciacorta non-vintage must be aged in bottles at least 18 months, who became 24 for the Satin and the Rosé. In order to be vintage, so single years, have to be aged 30 months. And in order to be called Franciacorta Riserva, must be a vintage aged 5 years, 60 months. So very long aging. But the percentage of Franciacorta Riserva are growing. And today, our consumers are really looking to see how Franciacorta can show during the years. And different producers present very, very old vintage. It can be 10, 15, or even 20 years old. This is important because it can show how in this region we can produce wine can be able to age very, very well.
Okay, I think that is a very, very important distinguishing feature of Franciacorta. I've tasted some Franciacorta wines of over 10 years aging. The bubble's still fine and persistent, but the autolysis that happens during the aging on the lees has really given a richness and a complexity to the wines that make them really fascinating. So that's an overview, a brief overview of some of the styles of wine in Franciacorta. You mentioned 120 producers in the consortium. Is that right, Silvano?
Correct, 122.
Okay, 122. Now, those range from the large producers, the well-known names whose wines are perhaps more readily available, to very small producers that are making the wines on a much smaller scale. Is that right?
Correct. And some producers, they sell only in a winery where sometimes they have a tasting room or small restaurant or agriturismo.
Yeah, that's what I found fascinating when I was in the area last year. And it reminded me as well that in Champagne, for example, you know, the Grand Marques that have brought prestige and name to the Champagne wines are, of course, well known, but equally interesting can be the propriétaires récoltants, the small growers, where the wine is made on a different scale. Of course, they won't have the resources, the reserves to blend and maybe have the consistency, but it's an important part of Franciacorta that I think our listeners who will come and visit the area should also explore. Now, I think an important event has just taken place that I'd like to turn to and learn more about, the Festival Primavera, Cibo e Cultura. Can you tell us about that? Perhaps Chef Mauro, can you tell us about the festival that has just taken place?
The festival is a very important project that Consorzio talk about us. We were very happy to have some chef coming in our kitchen to share different kind of food culture. And what we did, we call a couple of chefs. There are two brothers called Alex and Vittorio Manzoni from a Michelin star restaurant in Bergamo. It's called Osteria degli Assonica. And we had a great lunch with them. So we split the menu into different parts, so in which they made their own place, their signature dishes, more based on vegetable. Meanwhile, we present dishes more based on meat and fish. So it's a very, very nice joint venture.
And this was happening in other restaurants as well during the festival.
Yes, of course.
This bringing together outside tastes and cultures into Franciacorta.
Yes, every restaurant has a guest chef. So every restaurant and chef was free to call whether a friend or another professional chef. That's what we did. Yep, and the people and our guests were very happy.
That sounds a really, really great opportunity to get to know both Franciacorta, but also to bring people in with other styles and influences. Now, Silvano, can you explain what the goal was behind the festival Primavera, Cibo e Cultura? Was this the first time it took place?
The festival, our classic festival is in September, where the wineries are open. They do many events into the vineyard, into the winery. In spring, we used to do something in May, but this new version of the festival was ready to start in 2020, when we were the COVID. So the same week of COVID was the first test of our festival. That's we choose to start again after the COVID, of course. The idea is to open not only the winery, but mainly the monastery, the castles, the villa, to show the culture and the history in Franciacorta, and also give opportunity to our guests to have a very important experience in a restaurant, in agriturismo, and to spend a weekend in the region to see the castle, the villas, but also food experience and, of course, enjoy the wine. So it's a new beginning for us for this spring festival. And, of course, we will improve next year and next year again. But in order to this year, to this weekend, we are happy for our first step.
Okay, well, it sounds like a very, very good event. I like the way you're bringing culture and food and linking it to wine, because, of course, Franciacorta, the wine that we know, is a relatively recent wine, but grapes have been cultivated in your area for at least 1,000 years or longer. Is that right? And then, of course, the creation of the Franciacorta sparkling wine that we now know of when we hear the name Franciacorta came about, I guess, starting in the 1960s.
Correct. The first bottle of Pinot Franciacorta was created from Franco Ziniani in 1961, but the region is older. As often happened in Italy, in Europe, production of wine was important since Romance time. But in Brescia, in Franciacorta, we are lucky because we have especially two extremely important books written in the first in 1570, Libellus Divino Bordacci from Girolamo Conforti, and his doctor was talking about the fizzy and crispy wine produced in the region 5 centuries ago, who is a lot. And at the same time, in 1565, the agronomist Agostino Gallo written the 10 and 20 giornate dell'agricoltura e piacere della villa. Is also talking about the fizzy and crispy wine called Mordacius, as well the Herba Mat. So we know this indigenous variety was already present 5 centuries ago. And this is extremely important for us because show how the noble family can enjoy during in the villas, during party or special events, also fizzy crispy wine in Franciacorta. 5 centuries ago, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that is fascinating. Fascinating, too, that this rediscovered grape, Erba Mat, dates back at least that long. Just a brief question about Erba Mat. I know it's been an important new addition to the discipline. What does Erba Mat bring to the wines of Franciacorta, and why has it been introduced?
I think it's our must be our commitment to work and understand this variety. And we start 15 years ago, and we will need at least more 15 years because we also need to prepare the wine, age, and see the aging. But we are talking about a variety of white grape. And this variety ripe and we harvest normally 6-8 weeks later than Chardonnay. And we normally harvest in October. And it's a variety who bring a good level of acidity and not too much alcohol. But again, another important characteristic is this variety is poor in polyphenol, so this make this wine from Erba Mat really interesting for blending for a wine who have to age actually in a bottle for years. I believe makes sense the study. Today we don't know if in the future would be important, but for sure it's our commitment. Even because it's not often happen where a region can show a variety indigenous with 5 centuries of history, and we are lucky. It's a gift from our history.
Yes, that's true. Okay, well, let me return back to Chef Mauro. Chef Mauro, can you tell us first of all about Al Maló? I see it's Cucina e Miscelazione.
Yes, it's Cucina e Miscelazione. That's the Italian word for mixology. Because what we wanted to do in the beginning, so we were three young guys, Alberto, Mauro, and Lodovico. So Almalò is the initial letters of our names, Alberto, Mauro, and Lodovico. And Lodovico was born behind a bar desk, so he's a bartender. We wanted to mix kitchen, so good cuisine, with mixology. Of course, wines, of course, Franciacorta wines, but of course also some cocktail to pair with the dinner, with the lunch, or to go for aperitivo, for aperitif.
That's great. That clears up the name. I wasn't sure what that meant. Mauro, can we talk about some of the most typical foods of Franciacorta, some of the most typical dishes that every visitor that comes to have a stay on the Lago di Iseo should make sure they sample?
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
As Silvano said before, Franciacorta is not very big, but it has different landscapes. It goes from the lake to the hill or small mountains. So you have a very interesting variety of food between all the land. Of course, when you go to Lago di Iseo, you must try the freshwater fish. And one of the most known product is the Sardina di Montisola. Montisola is an island, the biggest lake island. They fish this fish, and they dry under the sun. You can eat it whether with pasta or you can grill it and eat with some polenta. And I think that's one of the highlights of Lago di Iseo.
Yes, actually, when I was visiting, I went over to Montisola and sampled the Sardina di Montisola, and a very fascinating food that I think is protected by a slow food presidio. Very, very interesting flavors, very intense flavors. What I thought was quite interesting as well was that Franciacorta wine actually went very well with this strongly flavored dried fish served with polenta. So we have a very elegant, very beautiful wine, which, because of the freshness and the acidity, also paired well with this rustic flavor of the lake, this intensely flavored dried fish with polenta. I guess it's a sort of foods that would have been the foods of the working people in the past. And now, of course, it's a specialty because there are not many producers of the sardina left, are there?
No, exactly. There are very, very few small producers that fish in that way. But as you said, that Franciacorta goes very well with Sardina di Montisola. I think Franciacorta goes very well with everything from the beginning of the meal till the end. That's always a good opportunity to open a bottle of Franciacorta.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you on that. Now, I think it's also interesting that you said that the varied terroir of Franciacorta also gives chefs a varied range of ingredients from the mountains to the lakeside. What are some of the most typical products of the area that you can then, as a creative chef, make use of in your restaurants and in some of the other restaurants that are in the area? Because I know Franciacorta is a very elegant wine, a very prestigious wine, and there's some beautiful and prestigious restaurants in the area as well.
Yeah, well, there is another product, manzo all'olio, that's beef stew in olive oil. The highlight of this dish is that the beef meat is stewed with olive oil and anchovies. It's like a surf and turf, meat and fish together. It's lovely, and actually, I don't make it at the restaurant because I think that there are some people who can make it far way better than me. I tried to make it, but I did it in a different style. So I used it to fill up some fresh pasta, some ravioli, because our cuisine, in the restaurant, in Maló restaurant, it's not traditional, but of course our roots are here. So we need to know the products and the techniques to step up.
Of course. So this manzo all'olio, what would be the Franciacorta wine to pair with that? It sounds like normally one might reach for a bottle of red wine. Can Franciacorta pair well with weightier dishes too, do you think?
I think the rosé goes very well with the manzo all'olio. Rosé is made with a variety of Pinot Noir, Pinot Nero. It goes very well with the meat. The meat is a bit fatty because it is cooking in olive oil, and the bubbles helps your mouth for the next bite.
Yeah, of course. Now, just briefly tell me a few of the signature dishes then you would be serving at Al Maló.
Well, right now we are working a lot on the vegetables. One of the most liked dish is the beetroot cooked on the barbecue. This dish has a funny story because we wanted to give a new life to this vegetable, because usually beetroots are eaten, for my experience, when I was a kid with my parents at the sea. And we went to the beaches, and there are the hotel that usually serve beetroot salad, and nobody usually eat them. So I want to give a second opportunity to this vegetable. So we smoke it on the barbecue, then we serve with some fresh herb oil and hazelnuts, and that's a appetizer.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it is, because it's every dish has to have a story behind. It's not just cooking for just for cooking. It has to mean something to us.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess every restaurant will be following their own path in the area, but I know it's an area that people come to enjoy the food, to enjoy the wines, to enjoy the beauty of the countryside. Silvano, how important is wine tourism in Franciacorta? Is it well developed, and do you see this growing? And is that part of the work of the Consorzio to help promote Franciacorta as a destination for people to come and discover the wines?
It's growing, absolutely it's important, not only for the tourism, but producers are glad to give opportunity to consumer to see how we work in the vineyard, how we work in the winery, the philosophy of the house, the style of the house. And it's extremely important for both, for the consumer to have this kind of experience, but at the same time for the winemakers to talk with the customer and understand what is important for customer. It's extremely important for both. It's growing. We try to support the houses, the winery want to do activity in order to promote, but at the same time, winery are really open and extremely working in order to build a new experience. Today, Tourism Franciacorta is not only visiting a winery, but you can visit castles, monastery, of course, the Lago di Seo. You can run around with bicycle or horses. You can swim in the lake. You can do many, many different experiences.
That's a good thing for our listeners to know. As I said, I think Lago di Seo is less well known than some of the other Italian lakes, certainly for foreign visitors. That's all the more reason to visit it. And our listeners are located all around the world who travel to Italy will come to Franciacorta to discover the wines, to discover the cuisines, and to discover the culture and the beauty of the place. Thank you so much, both of you, for being my guest today. It's been a real pleasure learning more about Franciacorta, about the wines, about the cuisine, about the festival that will take place next spring again. And I look forward to returning to Franciacorta. So thank you both very much. Grazie.
Grazie, Mark. See you soon.
Ciao, Mark.
See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, Mauro. Thank you very much. A presto.
Ciao, a presto.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.